All right, here's the second video of multiplication. I replaced the stool I was sitting on, so hopefully I will stay upright. Okay, all's good so far. I wanted to answer the questions that I had for your assignment from yesterday. Take a look at these, check them, make sure you got them correct, and then move on to the next. Then we're going to move on to the next part of this multiplication. Number one was 7 times 9. Okay, so that's a mental math. 63. Remember, 6 and 3 add up to 9. That was a trick you could do with 9s. And then you've got 15 times 5. Okay, so 2-digit times a 1-digit. So our process was to do 5 times 15, which is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 1 is 7. Or plus 2 is 7, sorry. And then 78 times 7 is 7 times 8 is 56. Carry the 5. 7 times 7 is 49. Plus 5 is 54. Okay, so now if I'm going kind of fast, slow it down, rewind it. Also, just keep in mind that if you're using your chart to try to get like the 7 times 8, 56, try to get quicker at that without having to check your chart as much. Maybe practice with some of those. If you type into Google like multiplication, free multiplication worksheets, you'll get plenty of problems and you'll get answers to them as well. A lot of them come with the key so you can check your work. Okay, I'll keep going on here. Number 4. 257 times 6. Okay, so 6 times 7 is 42. Carry the 4. 6 times 5 is 30. Plus 4 is 34. And 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 3 is 15. So 1,542. Number 5 is 40 times 4. So we got 0 here on the end. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 4 is 16. And then number 6 was 300 times 2. So we got 2 zeros. But you get 2 times 0, 2 times 0, 2 times 3, 600. Okay. Number 7 was 500 times 8. Excuse me. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 5 is 40. Now we went that, and this is what I was talking about, keeping track of your zeros, because you want to make sure you put the right amount of zeros. This is 8 times 0, this is 8 times 0, and this is 8 times 5, which is 40. So this is 4,000. 67 times 83. So now we got a 2-digit on the bottom. So 3 times 7 is 21. Carry the 2. 3 times 6 is 18. Plus 2 is 20. Cross that out because you're done with that. And then remember, on the next row, you need to put a 0. 8 times 7 is 56. Carry the 5. 8 times 6 is 48. Plus 5 is 53. And so these are the ones I'm talking about. Check each row. You may not have the right problem, the answer here at the end, but check and see where you made your mistake. Because now we add them. So check and make sure you got 201 for the first row, 5,360 for the second row, and that's going to add up to 5,561. Okay. Number 9 was 75 times 58. So same thing. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 7 is 56. Plus 4 is 60. Put your 0 to start your next row. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 7 is 35. Plus 2 is 37. So check each row. You should get 4,350. Okay. Number 10 was 70 times 36. Okay. 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 7 is 42. And then you start your next row. That's the 0 to start your next row. then you do 3 times 0, then you do 3 times 7, and now you add, okay, 2,520. Number 11 is 200 times 82. So 2 times 0, 2 times 0, 2 times 2. 0 to move over, and then 8 times 0, 8 times 0, 8 times 2. That's what I'm talking about. Be real careful with your zeros. This was the 0 to move over. This was this times 8 times 0, this times 8 times 0, and then 8 times 2 is 16. Make sure you keep it lined up so that you add the correct numbers, and you get 16,400. Okay, last one I had you do was number 12, 85 times 60. This is one that you can use the shortcut. We can already put the 0 to move over to this row because this 0 is not going to change anything. Then we do 6 times 5, which is 30. And then 6 times 8, which is 48, plus 3, which is 51. 5,100. So go back through those, check and see where you're making your mistakes. You know, take your time through them. If you have to go back and look, even if you have to go back and watch the first video and see the explanations again, but that is multiplying smaller numbers, okay? 2 digits is the biggest on the bottom that we did. Now we're going to get in, I want to do a few of what happens when you multiply a little bit bigger. And we're not going to be doing huge multiplication in here. You know, you could have super long problems. You know, as you go on to the next class in pre-algebra, we start using our calculator, and even most of math that you go on, you can use a calculator now, especially nowadays that you have your phone always with you. But, you know, we do want to be able to see it on paper, get a feel of it, and be able to do at least the 3-digit numbers that we're going to do here. So I wanted to do a couple of those to show you it's not really any different. The process stays the same. The key is you got to be real careful with your lining up, and there's more chance for mistakes as you get bigger. And so, you know, you want to just make sure you're keeping your processes really well. So just like when we did 2 digits down here, we're going to start here with the 7, and we're going to do 7 times everything up here, just like if we were doing 7 times 376, okay? So 7 times 6 is 42. 7 times 7 is 49, plus 4 is 53. And 7 times 3 is 21, plus 5 is 26. Now, I'm going to cross these out like I did, because I'm done with those. And I'm not going to use them again. I am going to put my 0 here to move over to this row. So nothing's changed from doing 2 digits. And now I'm going to do 9 times everything. 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 7 is 63, plus 5 is 68. And 9 times 3 is 27, plus 6 is 33. So check these 2 rows, make sure you have them lined up right, that the numbers are right. And once again, I'm going to cross those out. I'm done with those. I don't want to reuse those. Now to go to this third number here, I need more than 1 0. This row I put 1 0. To go one further, I got to put another 0, and that continues on. If I had a number here, I'd put 3 zeros. If I had a fourth number, I put 4. You know, as you go on, you put in another 0. So just to remember, this one I just multiplied. This one I put 1 0 and moved and did the 9s. Now I'm going to put 2 zeros, and I can start with my 2. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. And 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Okay? So that's your third row on this one. So add them up. You still do that. 14, 16, 3, 6, 11, 10, 11. And now we've got 3 numbers, 111,672. As you can see, as you get bigger, there's more chances for math mistakes. So just take your time, check each row here, make sure you did those right. And let's do another one. So 2037. What I would do times 158. I would pause this for a second, try this, see what you come up with, and then resume and see if you got it right. So 8 times 7 is 56. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 5 is 29. 8 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. And 8 times 2 is 16. Okay, done with those. I'm going to put a 0 to start on this row. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 3 is 18. 5 times 0 is 0, plus 1. And 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, done with those. Now we put 2 zeros. Now, when you're doing 1, all you're doing is 1 times 7, 1 times 3, 1 times 0, 1 times 2. Okay? So check each row. Now you add 14, so 3, 11, 18, 8, 11, 2, and 3. 321,846. Okay, one last one with the bigger multiplication. And we've got a lot of zeros. I'm going to put one in with a lot of zeros going in to show you that you've got to be really careful when they get this big to keep your zeros. Now we can still use the shortcut. Okay, so to go straight over to this number, I got to put my 0 to move to here, and I got to put another 0 to move to here. So I can use the shortcut. You know, I can use 2 zeros. Now I'm already here. Okay, and then I do 2 times 0, 2 times this 0, 2 times this 0, and then 2 times 3. So just a reminder, it was a 0 to move to here, 0 to move to here, and then I went 2 times 0, 2 times 0, 2 times 0, and 2 times 3. And that becomes 600,000. Okay. Now, the last thing, you'll have some of these to practice. There's not going to be a lot on the test. It's just a couple to kind of make sure you can do some bigger multiplication. One other thing I want to hit on is called area. So if you're taking notes, a little block here for area. Now, when we did addition and subtraction, I showed perimeter. And I talked about how if you had a shape, and let's say it's a rectangle, and let's say we've got this. Okay, we knew perimeter was just working our way around the edges, so going around the outside, the distance around. So we went 5, 7, 5, 7. We added them all up. Okay, area is different. Area is not talking about this like taking a string and measuring, or a ruler and measuring our distance around. Area is talking about all this area inside here. Now as we go on in math, we get into geometry, we really get more specific and call that surface area, meaning if we're going to cover the surface. This is a two-dimensional board, meaning it's not 3D. I can't hold it. When we think 3D, we think 3D movies, like stuff coming out towards us. That has 3 dimensions. You can hold it like a box, and you can put something inside of it, like liquid or gas or solid. But this means just the surface area. So just like if I was going to cover this with paper or paint it, that is talking about what this area we're talking about. When you get into 3-dimensional and geometry, we work with volume. Volume meaning we can pour something into it. So on this 2-dimensional shape, we have what we call area. And a good example in everyday life that uses this, if I had a room and I wanted to put baseboard around it, that's that like strip of baseboard that goes around it, I would need to know the perimeter. I would need to know what's my distance to go around it and to put up baseboard. I would need to know area if I was going to put carpet on the floor, like how much area am I covering? Square footage of a house is dealing with area. If you painted a wall, you would need to know the area of that wall, how much paint you could cover that area with. So area is talking about like the surface area. A square foot, here's a good example. So if you've ever seen 1 square foot, and it's written like that, okay, 1 foot would be like, and I'm going to try to get close to 12 inches here. Okay, so we'll say that's a foot. That's 1 foot. That's not 1 square foot. That's just 1 foot. That line is 1 foot long. So it's like 12 inches, the length of a 12-inch ruler. Okay, so that's 1 foot. 1 square foot would mean that you're going to make a square of a foot. There's a foot. by a foot, by a foot, by a foot. Okay, so 1 foot, each one of these lines is 1 foot. Okay, and so that means you have 1 square foot, because a square is the same measure all the way around. That's 1 square foot. So if you walk into a carpet store and you say, I need 1 foot of carpet, they're going to look at you and be like, what are you talking about? If you say, I need 1 square foot, this is the measurement you're going to get, a square foot, and it's going to cover the square footage. Okay, and the reason for that is when you're finding area, you are multiplying this length times another length. It depends on if you're working with a square or rectangle, and I'm gonna share that in just a second. But basically, you're doing a length times a width. And so if I was to multiply 1 foot times 1 foot, what happens is 1 times 1 is 1, and foot times foot, remember anything times itself is squared. So that's where we get that 1 foot squared, a foot times a foot. Now going back to my 7 and 5 one, that one's a little bit easier to see here. Okay, so if I've got that rectangle I was talking about, the 5 by 7, okay, and I have length and width here, all I need to do to find the area is multiply 5 times 7. That's why it's in the multiplication section that we're doing. So we multiply 5 times 7, we get 35, and then I'm mainly looking for that number. For your answers, I'm just making sure you're multiplying it and that you did the multiplication correct. But then it's whatever, like let's say this is inches this time, and let's say it's measuring by inches. Well, then it's inches squared, because you do inch by inch. If it was feet, it'd be feet squared. If it was centimeters, it'd be centimeters squared. So it's whatever measurement it is squared, okay? Because you do length times width. Now, perimeter, what we had to do, if you remember, we had to go ahead and fill these other ones in and then add them all up. With area, we don't need to do that. We just need a length and a width, and we just multiply them. So with a rectangle, you just need these 2 measurements. With a square, okay, with a square, you only need 1 measurement, because if that one's 4, well then so is this. And all you do is 4 times 4, which is 16. And let's say this is inches. It's 16 inches squared. Okay? Because you only need 1 measurement to know that the length and width is 4 times 4. And if, you know, if anybody's ever watching this that's like math, like, well, that's not how, you know, that's not the formula that I learned. Well, the technical formula for a square for area is side squared. And you take that side and you square it. So that's 16. But I think it's just easier to remember a square and rectangle together. And that rectangle formula is length times width. And so to me, it's the same concept. It's 4 times 4. On the other one, it was 5 times 7. So to me, it's just as easy to remember. You take 1 measurement and multiply it times the other. So 5 times 7 would be 35. I just keep it together for both of these. For a square and rectangle, make it length times width. It's just easier to remember that way. So basically, when you're doing area for us, for the problems that we're going to be doing, it's either a square or rectangle, just multiply the length times the width, and you'll get your answer. Okay, let me put up a couple problems. There's not going to be as many this time, because these will take you a little bit longer. But want to make sure you practice with this bigger multiplication and with the area. So 297 times 483, and remember, it's okay that the bigger number's on bottom, because it doesn't matter. So you'll just multiply this. Number 2, 5,208 times 274. Okay. Number 3, 4,000 times 600. Or you can use a shortcut if you want to. And then number 4 and 5, I want you to find the area of these figures. This is a rectangle, 3 by 12. And number 5 will be a square that is 6. And we'll say this one's feet, and we'll say this one's inches. Okay? And so these 5 problems, make sure you take a picture of them, upload them for your daily assignment today. My night class, you've got the first video and this video both. And you'll have until the following night to finish, so Tuesday night, if you're watching this in the night class. All right.